back to TC 911 Beyond the Call, the Tarrant 911 District Podcast. I'm your host, Abby Dudek, the Communications Coordinator here at Tarrant 911 District. This is episode 8, and I am here today speaking with North Richland Hill Consolidated Center 911 operator, Ramsey.
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Ramsey has been featured in our video,
yes.
our hiring video that
yes.
we just released last year. Mm-hmm. So you can find that on our YouTube. I think I put it all over social media and things like that. But YouTube, it's splashed on there. So you did a great job on that. So thank you for being featured in our video. You seem like a natural for the camera.
I usually don't feel that way. So.
No. Well, you did great. Now, were you, because I know there's usually during that time that intern Jake went there because he did the filming for that video. Were you and Diane like the last ones to volunteer, or like did nobody want? I'm always interested because there's like 6 of you. I know what the setup is in that room, and I'm wondering what the conversations.
Yeah, I think our new manager Tammy came out, and everyone was just like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, no.
They had mentioned it just so if we were interested or the least bit interested, maybe look a little more put together than our usual. So
what do you guys normally look like?
I mean, comfy sweatshirts. I brushed my hair that day.
Showered.
I cleaned up.
Just good thing there's no smell-o-vision.
Yeah. I wanted to look a little less exhausted, or
like you just rolled out of bed. I totally get it.
Pretty much.
Y'all work really long hours, so it definitely understands. But I was wondering, like, okay, I wonder it was you, Diane,
and Carrie. Yeah, and I think Brittany.
Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was in the video. She was her photo was in the video.
Her photo was. Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's good that we had volunteers, because I always get a little. I'm like,
I think everyone gets nervous, and they're like, someone else will step up, and so 1 or 2 people did, and then we were like, someone else has to go now.
Oh,
and I was like, okay, you go.
There you go. Well, and I totally get it. But then, like, once you do it and you see the video and how it put together, we don't make you look bad. We don't.
You did a very good job.
With the editing and stuff like that, we don't. Our job is not to make you look bad here. Me and Mr. Jake, we make you look good. So
you do.
So you're at, and I'm going to explain this for our friends at home, the awesome public. You're at North Richland Hills, and I said Consolidated 911 Center, so because y'all are North Richland Hills, Watauga, and Haltom.
Correct.
So that's fun. And how long have you been dispatching there?
So I've been there just about 1.5 years now.
Okay.
I moved summer of 22, I guess. 21. I can't keep track.
Something like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
A year and a half ago, yeah. I moved here from the state of Washington.
All right. And you were a dispatcher there?
Yes, for a consolidated county center that covered, I was trying to count this morning, 6 agencies.
Oh, wow.
Plus fire and EMS.
Okay, so you feel right at home at North Richland Hills.
Yeah,
then.
so it's same but different, just based on laws and how they police there. But it's the same concept. We had county deputies, city police, tribal police, and then we dispatched for fire and EMS. And in the area I was, a lot of fire and EMS was volunteer stations, so they weren't manned.
Okay.
So you would send out tones, and people would leave their job or their home and meet at the fire station or drive to the incident in their car.
Okay, wonderful. And so, how long were you dispatching there?
I was 2 years there, and prior to that, I was in the desert in California in Joshua Tree.
Oh.
And I did ambulance only, secondary off of county fire and city fire.
Like dispatching
ambulance for a private 911 ambulance company.
Oh, kind of like a Care Flight or something like that here.
Yeah, they covered all of Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, parts of Wonder Valley. It's a very large area near the national park.
Oh, okay. That's fun. And you were there for
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got about 7 years.
Yeah, I've kind of dabbled in. Prior to that, I lived in San Diego.
Jealous.
It was fun.
Do you miss it?
Yes and no. I miss like the weather and some of the food,
but not the cost.
But I think not absolutely not the cost, not the cost, not the traffic, which here traffic is also unreal.
Yeah.
You really just kind of pay for the zip code, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, I lived very South San Diego near the beach, but I never went to the beach, and it got really crowded during holidays. If you left your house, you'd never be able to park in front of your house again because you have out-of-towners. And
right, because you're close to the beach, and so they're looking for
when you live in a
to...
high tourist area, it kind of loses its flair, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so that's actually interesting, because I never talked to someone that's like, oh yeah, I live in a popular.
I mean, in theory, in my 20s, I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I have a beach house. I can look out. I see the beach. But then, in the summer, there's traffic. You never see anyone local. Everyone's out of town. They don't really take care of your community. Parking is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And you just kind of lose the interest, I suppose.
Sure. That makes sense. Oh, but this sounds so lovely, though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate that I've lived all over the place, really. Just kind of traveled and was the nomad lifestyle in my 20s, and then got married to someone in the military, and then the government has been kind enough to move us various
fabulous
places.
That's awesome. So what do you think of the big old state of Texas?
I like it for the most part. I know native Texans get really sensitive about this. I like it for the most part. I was raised in a very small country community in California, believe it or not. So we live out in the county. We live in Springtown.
Oh, okay.
So I like that, lots of open spaces, animals, what have you. The traffic here and the drivers here just, whew.
I don't think anybody's going to disagree with you, so I think you're safe to say that, because I can't imagine whether you're born and raised here or you're a transplant, everyone gets irritated with traffic.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's been really neat. Like I said, we've only been here a year and a half. We've already been to the coast. We've already been to little areas in Oklahoma. It just seems like there's so much to do. Sometimes the drive is long. It still blows my mind. You can drive 10 hours, and you're still in the state of Texas.
You're like, are we somewhere now? No, we're still in Texas.
So that's wild. But there's a lot to offer. I'm really excited to be back around sports teams, maybe catch a few games.
Oh yeah, that's the nice part
stuff
about
like that.
Living in the Metroplex here is that it's just a quad of sports in one area. So you can, quickly take the train if you wanted to over to, the American Airlines Center to watch the Mavs or watch, the Stars, or they go right in Arlington and watch the Cowboys or the Rangers or something like that. So it's that's one thing when I moved here 11 years ago, I was like, oh wow, this is great. It's a lot right there.
A lot of the places we've lived have been pretty rural, out in the desert. We actually were on an island in Washington. Oh. So going somewhere even like Target, Costco, any of that was
quite
like an hour drive minimum.
Right.
So I've gotten myself into quite a struggle now that I can get to 4 different Targets in like 30 minutes.
How many Targets do you pass on your way home to Springtown?
Lake Worth, just all over the place.
I love the fact that Amazon has a lot of distribution centers, because just this past Christmas, I had to order something last minute, and then it actually arrived that night. Like I ordered it like 4 o'clock in the evening, and then it showed up at like 10 p.m. And I'm just like, oh, that's so nice.
That's been me this past Christmas, just with all the online pickups. I'm at work in North Hills. I can easily pop over to Hearst. I can hit Lake Worth. There's one in Weatherford. Yeah. They're just all over the place. I'm like, I need this.
Yeah,
Click,
we were just talking about how convenient that area is.
It really is.
Right in the center. You're not too far south in the county. You're not too far north. And you're not too far from like the travel to Dallas if you want to go to Dallas.
Right.
Like that North Richland Hills, Bedford area is just
a sweet
so
spot convenient.
Of like
food, stores, everything, and
you can spider web up to wherever you want to go and not that far of a distance. So it's actually that to me would be a good prime place to live. And
Yeah,
because
we had considered it, but we came in when the housing market was an absolute mess. So we're just
taxes are really high
the fact
too.
that we got a house when we did.
Yeah,
for within our budget in theory is shocking.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason we're out, but we've talked a lot about how much more convenient it probably would have been to live there. But it's, working there, and like I said, just add to cart and pick up in 2 hours is something that I've not been able to do in close to 10 years. So.
Yeah, now it gets to danger status.
Yeah, now we're just like,
oh gosh, it's too easy now. I know, every time I hit that button, boop, 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 boop. The Amazon people are probably like, hey, but at least, you know what? I'm actually a nice Amazon delivery customer. Like, if I have a bunch of packages and things like that, like, I give them protein bars, I'll give them different, because I gave one to one evening, and this gal looked like this was through the holidays, this past holidays, and they just look worn, so many deliveries.
They're coming like at 9 and 10 o'clock at night.
And all the routes that they do. So I gave her a protein bar. I'm like, here you go. And she's like, oh my God, thank you. I haven't had time to eat. I haven't had a break or something in my stomach. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and I'm sure they're allowed different breaks to do whatever and things, but I'm sure it's kind of a pressure job too, because as a customer, we see and we can track them where they're at, and everybody wants their packages and stuff. I'm more of like, I'm good. Unless obviously I'm last minute holiday shopper or birthday shopper. But they don't get, I'm sure they get breaks. I don't want to imply, I don't know anything, so I'm not implying that Amazon doesn't give them breaks. But when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, here you go. So she might have been really busy because it was the holidays, and she's a super duper employee, just wants to get everything done to all the customers.
Well, I know where we live, it's not well lit. Your address is not visible. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that I've never had an issue with packages here. I've lived other places where I think, mail service is like, that looks good, and sets it there.
Oh, yeah.
So I've started doing, you can tip your last delivery person if you have the Amazon Prime app.
I do have the Amazon Prime app. I would leave stuff out,
but the deer here are just ballsy, and we have like 20 deer a day in our yard, and they will just eat everything.
Okay, that's a new one. Haven't heard that before. I heard, obviously porch pirates and people stealing. Obviously out in the out in the country, the deer are eating your packages.
And they just have zero fear. They will stand on the road and just make direct eye contact with you. And I'm like, can you move or something?
Like, what are you doing, man?
We just redid a front flower bed not even a month ago. It's been eaten. They ate my entire garden.
Oh my God! Is there anything you can spray on it that's healthier for the plants, but tastes bad for the deer?
Kind of like dissipates, and it's like they sense it. They're like, "Well, that weird stuff she put in there's gone. Come on, everybody!" I go
breakfast.
I'll go to leave sometimes for overtime in the morning, and they're just everywhere. You start the car, and they just like look at you.
Yeah, that is pretty gutsy for them to be out there, considering that this is Texas, and they could be dinner.
Yeah. Okay. They just have absolutely no fear. They're on our porch. We have a large breed dog, and they just are not phased. And he's older now, and he's just like, I don't know, man.
They're like buddies.
I've barked and...
So it's like a Disney movie at your house.
Yeah, it's just, they're everywhere. And it's just, I don't want them to be. And I don't...
Like, look, we're not coexisting here.
I'm texting friends who are hunters, and I'm like... Scarecrow, like, what do I do?
Well, your hunter friends, do you think they'd want to be like, hey, we'll be right over?
I wish. Obviously they're not bucks, and I'm not sure what the rules are, but man, they go through everything. They've ruined all of my plants, my garden. I'm just done with them.
Wow, that's I had a bee problem over the summer. You got serious problems. You got deer problems.
They were drinking out of the swimming pool we had this summer.
Did they ever fall in?
No, it's one of those inflatable ones, so it's exactly like neck high for them.
Okay,
it's just super convenient. I'm like, no, man, that's not for you.
Okay, I did have a duck. We have a pool, and the duck, even though I have an 8-foot privacy fence, the ducks will fly into it and duck around. And I'm like, y'all need to get, so I let the dogs out, and of course my dogs aren't going to catch anything, but I like to give them good confidence and really talk them up, because I really want their self-esteem to be high.
Sure.
And so they're only like 30 pounds each. They're not, but they go out there and bark and whatever, and then the ducks fly off and everything like that. But the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then the rest of my friends with pools, because this is the first time I ever had a pool, they're like, you can't have the ducks in there because of the chemicals and everything like that. And if they do their duck business, that can also, mess up the chemical balance of your pool. I'm like, okay, never mind, not cute anymore. You guys got to go.
Like this.
So anyway, so what got you to get interested in emergency services, working as a dispatcher?
So oddly enough, I was an EMT starting when I was 19 or 20. I was actually in college for business and marketing, and I thought I wanted to be in fashion. I'm not a fashionable person. Anyways, we had a class assignment to interview someone in the line of work you want to be in. I was in a tiny town. I still to this day do not know anyone who is a fashion merchandise person. And so I was like, cool, I don't know what to do. I was working in a coffee shop and the medics would come in all the time. And so one day before my assignment was due, I asked the medic and I was just like, hey, if I buy your coffee and your breakfast, can you come back later and we can have a sit down and just a quick interview, 20 minutes. Turned into an hours-long conversation, 1 or 2 hours. And he basically got me to change my major, sign up for EMT school, get a job at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Because I was 19, 20, and I didn't know what to do. And I had listened to him, and he was like, come by the station, do a ride-along. It's going to be fun. And it was. It was great. I instantly loved it and immediately applied to be a CNA at our local hospital, switched all my classes, and did EMT the next semester. And so when I was 21, I started working on a 911 ambulance where I lived. And I worked there for a while. Then I moved to San Diego, and I just kind of stayed with it. Occasionally, I would take a break and work at like a doctor's office or something. When I got pregnant with my first daughter, we were moving out to Joshua Tree. And I just didn't feel like it was a wise decision to be a pregnant person on an ambulance.
Right.
So instead of applying for an EMT job, I applied for dispatch. And then you just kind of get in that dispatcher life where you're in your cage. And I don't think I could acclimate well to being back around people all of the time.
Oh, sure.
In this sort of setting. But it's just something I've done now for 16 years, and I don't know what else I would do. Yeah. Because this is the only thing that feels normal and like I'm good at it. It feels right. It feels like one of the few things that I'm good at.
Yeah, because when you got into it, and that goes to my next question, did you think that you would stay that long? Because the 16 years, that's all wrapped in with all of your first responder.
All of EMS,
but then 911 didn't start until like 7 or 8 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. I started exactly when I was 30. I'll be 37 this year.
Okay. So did you think that you were going, like when you went and did the 911 thing, maybe in the first year or two, did you think you were going to stay with it for the next,
Absolutely not. I was still had all my license for EMT, and I had planned to transition. And I had reached out to the academy person to just redo all of my state stuff, because in California you have your national and your state card and your county card, and I had 2 of the 3, so I would have needed to recert. And then my husband got orders to go on 2 deployments. And so going to school and having the kids was not doable.
Oh, that's a lot.
And then we were moving to Washington while he was deployed, and they have different state requirements. So I decided to do it later. And then I got to thinking, I just don't have it in me in my mid-30s to be up and down all night long, running calls. Not that we don't work a bunch in dispatch, but, I at least can get some sort of sleep, go home sometimes.
Well, the physical part of it, it isn't really.
My body was like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, dispatch, I mean, majority of the time, everyone sits and, you're going to say phones and stuff. You may get up to go to the printer or get up and do whatever.
But you're not lifting people. Yeah, you're not pulling them from between the bathtub and the toilet. You're not driving all over the place at night. And
you don't have that, and that can be, I'm sure that several medics can vouch that's probably a toll on your body.
If you are in it and stay in it, you have better luck. But, I stopped for a while and my body was just like, we like this. We like to get some sleep and not be lifting.
Well, that's okay. So you didn't know you were going to stay in it that long, but this is where you're at.
Yes.
Did you have you taken a call that can you think of that call that you took that maybe in the beginning of your 911 career that you knew that you were where you were supposed to be, like it just validated you being a 911 call taker or dispatcher? Can you remember a situation where you're like, oh, yep, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm staying?
Off the top of my head, not quite. I think a lot of it is interactions with some of our officers and the people, to be honest. When I was in Washington, we had a very tight-knit group of deputies and officers. They were invested in us. We were invested in them. Mm-hmm. And I think anytime they were in danger, it just... once you know that they're okay, you're just like, whew, like there's no one else that I want to be there for my officers than me.
Sure.
So those type of calls, honestly, when you get the sweet old lady who needs something absolutely basic and she's just so appreciative of that you'll send someone out to change the fire alarm battery, or that she's fallen in the driveway, and they're usually just so nice about it, and they just like appreciate you existing that day.
And this was a smaller community. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I want to clarify that for our listeners.
Well, even here, it's the same thing. I think it's the people who don't need much from you, but are just so appreciative that you're there.
We would appreciate that I'm sure some agencies may change fire alarms, but our smoke detectors and stuff, but we want to make sure that they're not calling 911 and doing that. So that's why I wanted to clarify that's not a guarantee. So that is not a firm statement from any public safety organization here in Tarrant County or anywhere that they'll do that. Just happened in your area.
Yeah, so that was something they did where I used to work.
I have to put a disclaimer on it, because someone may be listening and being like, oh, you know what? I need my battery changed. I need someone to look at that.
Sure.
So non-emergency number, you could always call the non-emergency number and ask, but don't call 911 for the smoke alarms and stuff like that. But I get this sense of community within that, of helping citizens out who generally need the help and not asking for much, especially senior citizens and things like that mobility may be an issue, but they're still obviously wanting to keep their home safe with updated fire smoke detectors, CO detectors, things like that. So I was glad that they had, they had that sense of community there where you were at. What are some of your goals in the next 5 years at NRH? Or anywhere where do you want to continue to stay in 911?
I think I'm going to stay, and I have every intention to stay with North Hills as long as they'll have me. And
that's good.
We're hoping to
I'm sure they're listening, so good answer.
Please keep me.
Hang on to her. She seems all right to me.
My husband's at the end of his career. We plan to stay here, so I'd like to not move. I'm really into community relations and education. Recently, we got invited to do the open houses with the North Hills Fire Department, set up a table, brought some stuff. And I think interfacing with the community is so important because there's so many misconceptions, one, about our job, what it is that we do, the amount of people that don't know we're a consolidated center is just crazy. Like, I didn't know, you'll ask, what city is that in? Because so many cities have similar names. And to them, they're like, crazy, this is Haltom. And I'm like, okay, there's 4 cities we dispatch for. And the response is always, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of them don't, because your guys' name is North Richland Hills. And so I can understand where the public's coming from, because we do have cities in Tarrant County that are not part of, how do I say this? Where people would understand it, like Edgecliff Village and things like that. There's no Edgecliff Village 911. There's no Haltom 911. There's no, so I can totally understand where people would get confused, because Edgecliff is dispatched by another center, and sometimes that'll change who's dispatching them.
Right.
So it's the same thing with like Blue Mound and all the other little cities and things like that. So they'll jump into other dispatch centers because they're smaller and it's easier for them to do that. And
and it makes sense, because there's a Haltom Fire Department and a Haltom Police Department.
So they see that and they think.
I think the general consensus is that every city just has their own
city's 911 center. Yeah. And with you guys, you're consolidated and things like that. So I'm sure that throws a big thing. I do wish you guys would come up with a name.
I know. I wish there was something to make it more obvious, but it's things like that. We had a Jeopardy board that we put together for this event, and the amount of people who aren't aware that you still need to provide an address and a phone number, because they're like, well, we have cell phones. What do you
guys
need?
Have text to 911 on that Jeopardy board? Okay, thank you.
We do. We let and people don't know that. And so there's just a lot that people assume, because we're in the day and age of technology and cell phones, that we just know exactly where you are at all times, or they don't think.
A lot of that's from entertainment. So a lot of that comes from TV and movies and things like that. And I think also people incorporate that with, well, Uber Eats can find me and Google can find me and all that stuff. Well, those are like multi-million-dollar companies, so they have the money to pay for that sort of technology. Right. And the citizens, y'all out there, you pay for 911 services, not through, here in Texas, it's through the 911 fee on your cell phone bill, and we also get money from some of the landlines, but it's not a tax, it's a 911 fee. And so it's 50 cents here, and unless you want that to go up to like $60, that's why that technology is just, it's more costly to have that accurate. But I think from what we are doing and what we have, speaking from the district who implements the technology and implements all that stuff, we're doing a really good job of really narrowing down the location for y'all on the maps and things like that. And it's just going to get better as time goes on. But a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, you got me. But I think that's a lot of that comes from that.
A lot of adults were honestly surprised that they still needed to provide basic information to a dispatcher. And honestly, then how important it is for kids and adults to know their address, know basic landmarks, know things like that. Yeah. And what kind of things, if you're having some sort of an emergency, we're going to need to know up front. So I like going to those events. Yeah. I would love to do more things like that. We're also, a coworker and I have started what we call the happiness committee at work, where we find reasons to celebrate each other, celebrate holidays, and do things just to kind of change the morale. And it's hard. We spend holidays, birthdays, events away from family. A lot of us aren't from here, or whatever the reason, and it's nice to just make them seen. Hey, we see you. We appreciate you've been here for 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah,
happy
that's really
birthday.
nice. Yeah.
So for Christmas, this past Christmas, we did a ton of dress-up days.
Oh, that's fun.
We did a baking contest where North Hills Police Chief actually gave up his front row parking spot for the winner. And
that's nice.
We actually had 10 entries, and it was very competitive.
I do know of one of your dispatchers that made something.
Yes.
Because I'm on social media with that person.
It was fabulous.
And I was like, I can't eat any of that stuff, but my golly, I like to watch all that. I can tell you
it was fabulous.
Okay,
but it was
I appreciate
very exciting because, people were holding that close to them. Like, what are you making? I don't know. What are you making?
You guys are so funny. I love it. I love it. I love hearing. I get giddy because I love hearing that stuff inside dispatch centers and things because, like you said, you guys are together all the time. And you know what? It is like siblings. Like you love each other, but, you're with each other all the time, but I like when dispatch centers are taking the initiative to hey, you know what? We're getting a little, we need some positive stuff. Let's amp it up a little bit. And so taking that initiative to do that just speaks volumes, because you have, you're aware of your surroundings, you're aware of, maybe the room, your atmosphere, and you're like, you know what? We need an uplifting thing. We've had some harsh calls, or it's been really busy, or, maybe some people have been out and been sick, so there's a lot of overtime or whatever. And so let's do something fun, like, baking some pies and things like that. I think that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you guys have that committee.
Yeah. And it honestly stemmed out of, we had a system crash a few months ago, and another agency had to help us with our warrants. And, I just thought, we should say, hey, thanks for being helpful.
Yeah.
A card, a basket, something. And then we had a few coworkers who had some family emergency type things, and we wanted to reach out and our condolences, because really we're almost together more than we're with our families. And then holidays come, and we took off with Christmas. We decorated. We've got lights and trees and garlands,
fun.
Dress up days. We've done a hot cocoa bar. So we've just done stuff, and you notice that people are excited for it.
Yeah.
We've gotten creative. People are switching the dress up days just in case they're not here. They want to participate.
Sure.
And when you take care of the people, they're going to be more excited to come to work.
work. So if you need an idea, I need to find the donut place. I'll find it for you when we get done. There, you can do a donut gram.
Oh my gosh.
And so they deliver the donuts, but the person that delivers the donuts is like very eccentric.
This is fantastic.
Very dressed up. So I thought about that, especially when another agency helped you guys out.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. If you sent that to...
I love this.
That would be hilarious.
I instantly think of the movie Elf when he goes to sing.
Christmas gram. What's that? I want one.
Yes.
So, so I'll find that information, because I know it exists here in Tarrant County. Hopefully it's still open, because I remember seeing it before the pandemic, but I don't eat donuts. So yeah. But I'll have to look to see. But oh, for the love of me, if that still exists, you have to do that for someone, and I want to know about it.
I will find reasons to do it, because this is amazing.
Because I remember seeing it, like somebody I know did it and then sent me the pictures. And then I was like, what is that? And then I was like, do you know that person? And they're like, no, that's the donut gram. So you get these donuts, and then the person, dresses up in whatever kind of eclectic fun way. I'm sure it's like based on what holidays, what time of year it is, or whatnot. And it was hilarious. And I was like, oh geez. And I can't remember if they sing or if they do something. There was something, but I remember that. So I'm going to look that up so that you can reference that and use that for your gift giving.
I'm very excited about this idea now, and I really hope it's still open.
Oh yeah, I do too. We'll look when we get done here. So that's fun. But I'm so glad that you have that. So you're incorporated with your goals. Maybe you're wanting to keep that going, and
I want to keep that going. Education, community interface. I would also, I know we do a lot of. We have a good relationship with the BISD school system, and one thing that I tell people is I didn't know this was a job opportunity. I don't know who I thought did this job, but I had zero idea on how to go about doing this job or finding that information. When I worked on an ambulance, they had their own private dispatch. A lot of them were people that double dipped, worked on the ambulance, and on your day off did the same thing. And I don't mean to, if you want to go to college and go to school, I think that's amazing. Yeah. But there are also very good career and job opportunities for people who maybe school isn't for them.
Or obviously financial reasons and things like that. I totally get it.
ROP programs. I would love to get it out there that this is a job. This is something that's available maybe while you're going to school.
Well, and that's the thing too. You can go, most public safety organizations across the country have tuition reimbursement.
Right.
There may be some stipulations in there based on what you're going to school for. Some of them don't. It just depends. You have to ask. But I mean, yeah, I got my second bachelor's when I was dispatching up in Illinois while I was working midnight shift, and I went to Illinois State University and got my second one. So, you know,
one of our trainees, she just graduated from college like a week ago, and her, I think, end goal, she wants to be a police officer and continue in law enforcement. But this is an opportunity. And again, it's just, that's not something I thought about. I knew you could go to nursing school. I knew that you could do firefighting. Until my 20s, when I was on an ambulance, I didn't realize you could be on an ambulance independent of being a firefighter or independent of being a hospital network. So I just don't think it's out there. I always suggest this job when people are looking for something and they're like, oh, wow. Never would have thought about that.
Well, just even the job security alone.
Right.
Like
the job security, being part of a city or government agency, benefits. There's honestly room to grow. Supervision, education.
With the pandemic and stuff, I mean, that's what really the sweet spot is, because I feel like everyone in this country got a really big dose of how important it is to, if something was to happen, is your job secure?
Right.
You know, and even now with technology growing with AI, it's like, okay, how is my job secure? And with working in emergency services, you have that security because there's so many liable things that a human has to be there to do certain things. So I always tell people when I'm out promoting that several centers, including y'all, are hiring, I'm always like, job security. Like, another pandemic happens, you're still going to work. You know, you're still doing this. Police officer, firefighters, EMS, nurses, doctors, things like that. And yeah, like you said, the benefits are really important. You know, I always ask people, I'm like, what's your retirement plan look like? Do you have one?
Yeah. And that's not something that obviously early 20s-year-old me considered.
I wish I did.
Now that there's, you know, a mortgage and kids and responsibilities, it's, where's my retirement? What am I investing into it? What am I investing into my job so that, you know, I'm a couple years in now, I'm going to be here for 20 plus years probably. So where can I go with this? How can I make it work for my department as well as me, as well as my family?
Yeah, exactly. And that's perfect. I'm glad we got to bring that up too, because, you know, there are several agencies in our district, in our 911 district, that are hiring, and we have those listed on our website at tc911.org. And I know North Hills is really good about, if you're interested in a position, you can actually sit in the dispatch center and everything.
We honestly love having you sit in. Again, I think when people apply, it helps almost visualize the job. You can hear what we're doing. You can see what we're doing.
Pick prime times. This is the one thing. If you're going to do that, don't be like, oh, I'll go there between like 1 and 3.
Yeah,
No, you need to go in there like after 5.
After 5.
Like there's always
late
5
nights, that
to 9.
early morning when
go
people
sit in there
are...
on a Friday, Saturday night, something like that. Yeah, and I can vouch that, you know, I did work at North Hills for 4.5 years. So I can vouch, like, hey, join the team, things like that. And a lot of people are like, what? Dispatching for multiple agencies? That's got to be tough. You know what? Once you have it, it's in there. Like, once you figure out, like, who does what.
Once you're in, it almost feels, I was thinking about this earlier, I think it would feel super weird to not be a consolidated center and just have one department.
Yeah. Well, see, I went from one department to a consolidated, in a different state. So, oh, that's funny. One of my favorite memories. So I learned a lot about Texas when I worked at North Richland Hills as a dispatcher, because there's terminology that's obviously used here that isn't used up in Illinois. Right. Like, when you say toboggan to me, I think of a sled. Hello, I'm an Illinoisan person, you know, so I'm not going to associate it with a hat, because I call the beanie.
I had that recently. Some lady called the beanie a toboggan, and I was like, okay, he's carrying a sled in the middle of the street. And she was like, it's a hat.
Thank you so much.
And I was like,
oh,
what?
Thanks for validating.
Where did this come from?
So thank you for validating that. So this is what happened. So it was like midsummer, and there was, I don't know, a suspicious person or something going on, and someone called in, and I was sitting on police radio, and I'm reading the notes, and I'm about to give them the description, and I read toboggan, and instantly, so in a matter of 30 seconds, I have like this lifelong image and conversation with myself of like, what the heck? And so they said, oh, he's wearing a black toboggan and all this stuff. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, so I'm picturing this dude walking down the street in North Richland Hills with a toboggan on his head, like carrying it.
I pictured a sled, or that he had a sled.
Carrying it, almost carrying it like a basket over your head.
I was so confused. I was like,
I feel so validated right now.
I absolutely have never heard that before, and never heard it since. I just this one person.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I've never heard it since either. And it typed it in there, and so I was looking at it, and I just kind of sat there, and one of the gals must have saw the puzzled look on my face, which I'm very grateful for her. And she was like, it's a hat. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, because I call them stocking caps.
Right.
I don't call them beanies either. I call them stocking caps. And maybe that's my Canadian family coming out in me too. I don't know, but a lot of North going on in me. So, yeah, I just called it. I was like, oh, okay, a toboggan. So, of course, after the call, I'm like looking it up. And I'm like, oh, wow, that really is part of the hat. So thank you for validating my confusion.
It's stuff like that. I mean, one of my biggest challenges moving here was the thickness and the accents.
Oh, this is a great conversation.
Holy cow.
Oh, my gosh.
I struggled so hard.
I did too.
And I felt terrible because I have experience. But holy cow, when they're running traffic stops, I'm like,
that southern
what did you just say?
Oh, I had the same thing, and I would get so scared because I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't, you know what I mean? Because I know there's a lot of Texas pride, and I totally get it. And I was like, I'm not trying to offend. I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't understand you. But the irony is that they knew I wasn't from here because I had some of the words that I would say sometimes had a very strong northern a northern twang to it. And so they would, I think like the first couple weeks I was on radio, like everyone picked up like who's the northerner on the radio and things like that. But when they talked, like some of the guys with the rich, like
very
Texas,
thick, very together,
I was just like,
I'm gonna fail radio.
I don't know what he just said. Like I didn't, and it wasn't because I wasn't listening. Like you hear it, but you just,
it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they picked up that I was not from here. I think
that's what my question was going to be.
It's very obvious. We have, callers that call just to chat, and they have all said, you're not from here. I'm like, oh, yeah no, I'm not.
Sure.
So I feel bad for the officers. They're like, who is this new? Like, it's very obvious what I said. I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Callers, officers.
And then now you just hear it. Now I hear it and I'm like, fine.
It's easy.
And even when I talk to my friends back in Illinois, and so now they say I have a Texas draw. They're like, have you gone to Texas? I'm like, well, I have been here for over 10 years. So because you can call yourself a Texan once you've lived here. You have to give them 10 years.
Okay. So I have some time.
I had some gal at one of the Dallas driver's license facilities, because when I first moved here, I moved to Dallas, and I lived in the Dallas area. Actual Dallas, not Fort Worth, Dallas. I know there's a lot of confusion. And she was like, yeah, you welcome to Texas, and you can't call yourself Texas. You have to give us 10 years. And I was like, okay. So my Texas 10 year, I was like, I went out. We went and celebrated. We actually went to Painting with a Twist and like painted, like they gave you a cutout canvas of Texas, and then you got to paint like blue bonnets on it. And I was like, that's a perfect 10-year thing. So I'm so glad that we were able to relate to our transplant problems.
Yeah, there's a lot that's different. Verbiage, just the accents, and I absolutely really struggled, and I was so frustrated because it's not that I'm not listening, but it's like a language barrier.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they got rid of 10 codes. So FEMA is very big on like no more 10 codes because they're different in every state.
Right.
And if there is a big emergency where a lot of different agencies have to collaborate, you don't want to be missing 10 codes.
Because it confuses things and the severity of certain things mean different.
The gun code for Texas, the gun code for Illinois is a calmer code here in Texas, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something very calm. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first started there, that code came out because they were still using them a little bit.
Right.
And I heard that, And everyone in the room was like very calm and everything. Casual. And I'm just like, they just hollered out the gun code. What? What are we doing? Everyone's just so. I mean, I know this is Texas, but come on, And then all of a sudden, I started looking at it, and I'm like, okay, that means something else. Right. And I was like, this is exactly why that's gone away, because I think it's pretty much done. Right. I think everyone is just on plain language now. I think 10-4 or 10-9. 10-4,
those things. Yeah. But yeah,
the only ones I still hear is 10-4, 10-9.
My brain for some of the codes that were different, but there's for sure some. Another huge change that still gets me every now and then is for every priority 1 call we had, law only in Washington, we set off emergency tones for that department.
Oh my gosh, so did we in Illinois.
Yeah, if there's a physical fight in Washington, that's a priority one.
You did the warble tone?
You hit the button, it gives the 3 beeps, and that's every person in a car getting.
That's what we did too. Yeah. And it was hard for me when I went to North Hills because they don't do that.
They don't do that. And so I'd see it, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, do you guys not tone?
Yeah.
And they're like,
burglary in progress.
Never.
For anything in progress, we would tone everything.
They go with the appropriate response, but I'm so used to hitting those tones, and that's like an automatic.
Or if there was a wanted person, we had to do, if an officer was out on someone, and we didn't have a separate channel to run people. And so if an officer was out on something, and they came up with a hit, you would tone. And then that was the way. Now you just say, what is it?
Are you 10-12?
Are you 10-12? That's it. Are you by yourself? And so, yes, I totally forgot about that. But I was like, I remember being like, whoa, this is something's going on that's in progress, and there's no tones.
Yeah, that was a weird thing for me.
But I guess it makes sense because it's a consolidated center, so every city may do something different.
Yeah, because Maine, if you did that, everyone would probably just get real excited.
We totally just lived in the same.
But that was a hard thing. I moved here technically in the middle or towards the end of COVID. In Washington, we had a lot of COVID rules. Mm-hmm. So I got used to just saying the officers would do a lot of phone calls for not in progress things.
Sure.
So when I moved here and I just started saying like, okay, an officer will call you. And they're like, they're not coming out. And I'm like, oh, sure. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. You want to see him in person? That makes sense.
Because Texas did it a little different. So they were
like, oh yeah, no, we physically go to calls.
Because Washington and California and all that area, you guys were all shut down
very locked down, unless it was like a life and death in progress. The officer's just going to give you a phone call probably, or just kind of like pull up next to you, so there's still a lot of space. Yeah. But the interface just wasn't there in the height of COVID, and so coming here, I'm like, the past calls. We'll have an officer call, and they're like, we'll go in person, it's fine.
Never mind.
They'll be there.
Just kidding. They're going to come out and chat with you. I was just seeing how you're going to react to that.
Yeah.
Well, that is so fun. I feel so connected with you, right? Because we literally went through those same emotions of coming out from out of state. So high five. Listen to our high five.
Yay.
There we go. So that's fun to reconnect like that. Do you have any, as we end our lovely chat, do you have any educational things that you'd like to share with the public that a lot of the dispatchers in the podcast have been doing this, kind of leaving them with a, hey, make sure you do this or whatever, or
words a lot of wisdom, especially for medical calls now, just to make sure that we're getting the people to the right place. We're asking you to verify your address 2 times. Mm-hmm. Usually we will say it, but kind of in the height of the moment, it's not uncommon for someone to think they heard and be like, yeah, that's right. So, just be patient with us. If we're asking you to double verify an address, medical calls, we have specific questions we need to ask. I know that it seems like that's going to take up the response time. It's not, but this just helps them know what they're going to, so that they have the bags and the equipment and they're ready to roll. Just to be understanding with that. And again, just the same with, you still need to give us an address. If you've already left the area and you're reporting something on the roadway, do your best to kind of look around so you at least have a landmark. We're really good at locating off landmarks, especially the people who have lived here forever. But so many people just don't realize that, I don't have the address, or, I'm 5 miles down the road now.
Right.
So
it's
just
more of
the
a location.
Situational, whatever information you can give is very helpful. helpful.
Sure.
We dispatch for all the water, sewer, animal control after hours. So that's always kind of a point of confusion for people, that if you have something after the hours of 8 or 9 to 5, it's going to be us, because whenever we answer police and fire, they're like, oh, oopsie, nope.
Oh, yeah.
That's us.
Calling on the non-emergency number.
Yeah, no, they call in on the non-emergency. We answer that phone line, police and fire, how can I help you? And they're like, oh, no. I'm trying to get a hold of water or sewer. Like, oh, yep, that's us, because, it's in the evening.
Yeah.
So
so that's, I forgot about that, too.
Yeah, a lot of people will be like, oh, my gosh, I'm sorry, click.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to call the police. No, you're good. You're good. It's all right.
I'm here. It's us, too.
So you go. So that residents of those 4 cities, if, you can use the non-emergency number to ring into dispatch if you have an emergency utility issue.
Right.
Or
animal issue.
Things like that. So that's what that's utilized for, and things like that, because you guys page them and there's always someone to call.
And I think the number listed is the number to the city, so that during business hours you go through the phone tree after it just automatically rings in. So even if you think you got the wrong number, you probably didn't. Give us a couple seconds and we'll get you on your way.
Excellent. Well, that's some good information. Thank you so much. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on today's podcast. Course. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. This was fun.
See, I have to say now, folks at home, we have over 700 dispatchers in this county, and I always get a little nervous. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to want to do it, but it's not videoed, and so that helps my case. But then they start off. Some people start a little nervous, a little apprehensive, a little bit. But then once you start doing it, you're just having a conversation.
It's just a conversation.
We're just having some water and some tea and coffee, and we're just having a nice little chat. So it's not that bad. So because with dispatchers, I love them because you guys are very creatures of habit. And you go to your console, your communication is via phone and radio and stuff like that. So this I know is a little out of the comfort zone, but it's kind of. We have microphones, and you could just pretend I'm a regular citizen. Right. So, but I really appreciate you coming on and taking some time on your day off here to come in and chat with me and everything. And wish you luck with everything at North Richland Hills, and a lot of longevity there and growth and everything. Yeah. So, and I love the positivity that you're bringing there. So when we get done, we'll look up the donut. Oh, yes. The donut person. We'll see if that still exists. So thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. If you would like to go back and listen to other ones, please, I so encourage you to do that. Get to know some of these 911 headset heroes that are in the Tarrant 911 district area. We also have season 2 to hear the supervisors, and season 1 that is, now over a year old now. And that is going to be the staff here at Tarrant 911 District. You can listen to you can listen to it on all your favorite podcast platforms. Or if you don't want to download that stuff, that's fine. You can just listen to it on our website or our YouTube channel without having to download anything. How about that? So again, thanks for listening. We have a new episode every Monday, so stay tuned and, be on the lookout for next week's episode. And until then, have a fabulous week.